Have you ever felt lost and alone after losing the person you love most? Losing a spouse can turn your world upside down, leaving you grappling with intense grief and uncertainty about the future. In this video, we delve deep into personal stories and expert advice that reveal how to navigate life's toughest moments with strength and grace. You'll discover practical strategies to overcome excessive grief, build independence, and create a fulfilling life in your later years. Stay with us until the end, where we'll uncover the 3 crucial steps that can help you find peace, reconnect with yourself, and embrace a vibrant, meaningful journey ahead. Don't miss out on these life-changing insights that can transform your path to healing and happiness. If you are not subscribed, subscribe and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Now let's begin. First, refusal: immersing in excessive grief for too long. When a partner who has walked beside you through the ups and downs of life leaves too soon, the void they leave behind feels immeasurable. Their absence isn't just a physical one, it's the loss of a shared world, the unique bond built over years of companionship, love, and understanding. Even when children or other loved ones are present, their care and support can't fill the space carved out by the one who truly knew your soul. That space becomes a sacred reservoir of memories, moments of laughter, whispered dreams, and silent understanding. It's a place you visit again and again, reluctant to leave, clinging to the past because moving forward feels like a betrayal of the love you shared. Mosley, now 67, knows this pain all too well. Her words reflect a depth of grief that many of us can relate to but struggle to articulate. "When I was 64, she began, her voice trembling with the weight of her memories, "my husband passed away. We had been together for so long that I couldn't imagine life without him. At first I was in complete denial. I would wake up every morning and for a brief moment I would forget he was gone. Then reality would hit and the pain was unbearable. I felt like a walking corpse, just existing but not truly living. Every day felt like a blur of emptiness and despair. At night it was worse. I would lie in our bed, now so wide and cold without him. I couldn't sleep, couldn't stop the tears. I would stare at the ceiling or the empty pillow beside me, wondering why life felt so cruel. There were moments when I thought, why should I keep going? Maybe it would be easier to follow him." But then I would look at our old photos, the ones where we were smiling so carefully, free and happy, and something shifted in me. I could almost hear his voice gently reminding me, "Don't do this to yourself. You deserve better. Live on for both of us." That thought kept me going. I realized that my grief, no matter how deep, could never bring him back, but I could still honor him by living a life he would be proud of. Ms. Lay's journey through grief is a testament to the strength of the human spirit. The separation of life and death is perhaps one of the most heart-wrenching experiences we face. It's a pain that seems endless, a wound that time alone cannot heal. Yet, as Ms. Lay discovered, dwelling forever in sorrow only deepens the loss. The memories of the love you shared can be cherished, but they shouldn't hold you hostage. The present, despite its challenges, still holds beauty and potential. In the future, though uncertain, offers hope. Moving forward doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing to carry their memory with you as you step into each new day. It's about finding a way to live not despite the loss, but because of the love that still lingers in your heart. For those left behind, the path to healing begins with small steps. Ms. Lay's advice is both practical and deeply moving. "At first I just tried to survive each day. I ate because I knew I had to, even when food felt tasteless. I went for walks in the park, even though my heart ached with every step. Slowly I started finding moments of peace in the simple things: a cool breeze, the sound of birds, the way sunlight filtered through the trees. These little moments reminded me that life still had meaning, even if it was different now." Learning to embrace life after loss requires courage. It's about finding strength in solitude, not as a punishment but as an opportunity to grow. I used to hate being alone, Mlay admitted, but now I see it differently. Solitude is like an aged wine, bitter at first but rich and fulfilling when you give it time. I've learned to sit with my thoughts, to reflect on all the good times without falling apart. I've even started enjoying my own company in a way I never thought possible. Miss Lay's wisdom extends to finding joy in connections with others. Loneliness doesn't mean isolation, she said with a gentle smile. I started reaching out to friends, even if it was just for a cup of tea or a quick chat. We would reminisce, laugh, and even cry together. It reminded me that I wasn't truly alone. Some people care, and sharing your feelings can lighten the load even just a little. Ultimately, Ms. Lay's story is a reminder that life, though fragile, is also resilient. It teaches us that while the pain of losing someone we love never truly goes away, it can be transformed into a quiet strength. The way I see it now, Mlay concluded, living well is the greatest tribute I can give to my husband. I think of him every day, but instead of letting the sadness consume me, I let his memory inspire me. I imagine him smiling, proud of the life I'm building for myself. For anyone grieving the loss of a partner, Ms. Lay's journey offers both comfort and guidance. It's okay to mourn, to cry, to feel lost for a time, but don't let grief define you. Take care of your health, nourish your body and soul, and find beauty in the small joys of life. Go for walks, savor a good meal, or simply sit in the sun and let its warmth remind you of the love that still surrounds you. And when loneliness creeps in, as it inevitably will, don't be afraid to reach out. Share your thoughts, your memories, and your dreams with those who care. Even in solitude, there is a world of experiences waiting to be embraced. With time, patience, and a willingness to heal, the later years of life can still be filled with meaning, joy, and love. By choosing to move forward, not to forget, but to honor, you create a life that reflects the enduring power of love. It's a life that says, I am here, I am living, and I carry your memory with me always. Second, refusal. Over-relying on children for the rest of your life when old and the spouse is gone. The closest people are your children. As we age, particularly after the loss of a spouse, the people we often turn to for support are our children. For many, they are the closest bonds we have left, the ones who carry our legacy, and the ones we hope will provide the love and care we need in our twilight years. But is it truly wise or fair to place the entirety of our emotional and practical needs on our children? Is this reliance a guarantee of fulfillment, or could it bring unintended sorrow and tension? If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment one below to let me know that you are still here with me. For countless single parents, the idea of living with one of their children during retirement seems like the most natural and comforting arrangement. It's rooted in a lifetime of sacrifice and love. I cared for you as a child, and now you'll care for me when I'm old. This belief, though understandable, doesn't always align with the realities of modern life. Today's younger generation faces a world vastly different from the one their parents knew. Pressured by careers, rising living costs, and the challenges of raising their own families, many young people find it difficult to balance their own lives while also meeting the demands of elderly parents. Add to this the generational gaps in habits, values, and priorities, and what begins as a well-meaning gesture can quickly devolve into conflict and resentment. Many elderly parents, particularly those grieving the loss of a spouse, long for their children to be a constant presence, whether by living together or visiting frequently. It's easy to believe that this is an extension of filial piety, a child's duty to care for their aging parents. However, this expectation often overlooks the pressures their children face, both visible and hidden. The younger generation struggles with maintaining jobs, raising children, and navigating their relationships. Asking them to focus solely on their parents often comes at the expense of their aspirations, leaving them feeling torn and unable to fully live their lives. The story of Mrs. Howe, the experience of Mrs. Howe, a 65-year-old widow, provides a deeply emotional lens into this issue. When my husband passed away, it was as though my entire world crumbled, she recalled, her voice trembling with emotion. We had always imagined growing old together, sitting on the porch, watching our grandchildren play, and supporting each other through life's final chapter. But a cruel illness took him away too soon, leaving me utterly lost. I had never planned for this. Retirement without him felt like a hollow existence. In her grief, Mrs. Howe turned to her daughter for solace. At the time my daughter had just given birth to my grandson, her husband suggested I move in with them, and I was deeply touched by their kindness. I thought to myself, this is what family is for. Seeing my grandson every day brought me a sense of purpose, a reason to get out of bed in the morning. I began to pour all my energy into helping around the house, cleaning, cooking, and looking after the baby. I thought I was doing the right thing, contributing to the household while finding a way to heal my heart. For a while, this arrangement seemed harmonious. Mrs. Howe smiled faintly as she reminisced. At first my daughter and her husband were so grateful, they even gave me a small allowance each month, though I didn't expect it. I was happy to feel useful and loved, but as time went on, things began to change. She paused, her tone shifting to one of quiet sorrow. As my grandson grew older and more independent, my presence no longer felt as essential. My pension became the sole source of my income, and I noticed that the financial support my daughter once offered began to dwindle. I understood they had their expenses, but it hurt when they seemed to forget my needs. I started to feel invisible, as though my contributions were taken for granted. The generational differences soon became a source of conflict. I often found myself at odds with my daughter and son-in-law, she admitted. They believed in raising my grandson with a relaxed, hands-off approach, while I was convinced that discipline was essential from an early age. I also couldn't help but criticize my daughter's spending habits, shopping online endlessly while neglecting to save for emergency. I know I talked too much, but I only wanted the best for them. Unfortunately, my words weren't received well. They began to speak to me with less patience and warmth. Our once loving home became a place of tension and unspoken resentment. Eventually, Mrs. Howe made the heart-wrenching decision to leave. When I told them I wanted to move back to my own home, they insisted they would miss me, but I could see the relief in their eyes. It hurt deeply to realize that my presence had become more of a burden than a blessing. I had given so much of myself to their household, but in the end I felt discarded, like a helper whose services were no longer needed. Returning to her own home was an adjustment fraught with loneliness. The first few weeks were unbearable, she confessed. The silence was deafening, and I often found myself crying at night, wondering if I had made the right choice. I missed the chaos of family life, even the disagreements. I felt empty, as though I had no purpose left. But over time, Mrs. Howe began to rebuild her life. Slowly, I learned to embrace solitude. I rediscovered hobbies I had long forgotten: painting, calligraphy, gardening. I joined community groups and met other retirees who shared my interests. They became my new family, offering companionship and understanding without judgment. I began to cherish my independence, finding joy in the small pleasures of life. A cup of tea in the morning, the sound of birds outside my window, the satisfaction of completing a new painting. She smiled, her face radiating a sense of peace. Looking back, I don't regret my decision. I've learned that relying too heavily on children for happiness only sets us up for disappointment. The greatest gift we can give ourselves is the ability to stand on our own, to find fulfillment within ourselves rather than seeking it from others. My days are now filled with laughter, creativity, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing I am enough just as I am. A lesson for us all. Mrs. House's journey is a powerful reminder that while family is a source of love and support, it should not be our sole anchor. Life after loss can still hold meaning and joy, but it requires courage, resilience, and a willingness to adapt. For those entering their golden years, the key to a fulfilling retirement may not lie in the presence of children, but in rediscovering the passions and interests that make life worth living. As Mrs. Howe wisely observed, true freedom comes from letting go of expectations and learning to appreciate the beauty of life as it is. My husband may be gone, and my children may be busy with their own lives, but I found something even more precious, myself. Third, refusal, rashly finding a new partner or remarrying. It is often said that second marriages, especially those entered into later in life, are like walking into a foggy forest. You don't know what lies ahead, and the risks can be daunting. While the idea of finding companionship during one's golden years can be comforting, it is important to approach it with caution and clarity. Second marriages at an older age often involve individuals who have spent decades shaping their habits, perspectives, and routines. These deeply ingrained patterns, while natural, can sometimes clash, creating friction that neither party may have anticipated. Everyone carries a degree of selfishness, shaped by a lifetime of experiences, and adapting to another person's ways becomes an uphill battle without genuine understanding and compromise. Even a well-intentioned union can quickly unravel into regret and disappointment. Loneliness is a powerful emotion, especially as one grows older. The days can feel longer, the nights quieter, and the fear of facing an uncertain future alone can weigh heavily. The absence of a life partner often amplifies this feeling, leaving many yearning for someone to share the remaining years with, a companion to laugh with, confide in, and rely on. While this longing is natural and valid, it can sometimes lead to hasty decisions. The desire to fill the void left by a departed spouse or to escape the ache of solitude may push someone to rush into a new relationship without fully considering the challenges that might arise. Elderly remarriage, as appealing as it may seem, is not just about finding someone to share your life with. It's about finding the right person, someone who can offer mutual respect, understanding, and genuine companionship. Making the wrong choice can transform what should be a time of peace and fulfillment into a period fraught with conflict, resentment, and heartbreak. Mrs. Fawn, a 62-year-old woman with a lifetime of wisdom, knows this reality all too well. Her story is one of hope, heartbreak, and ultimately a hard-earned lesson. "I've been through 2 marriages," she shared, her voice tinged with a mix of sorrow and determination. "My first husband passed away when I was 53, and my second marriage ended in divorce within a year. Even now, thinking about it feels like reopening an old wound, but I want to share my experience, because I hope it will help others avoid the same mistakes I made." Mrs. Fong had always envisioned a blissful retirement with her first husband. "We had so many plans," she said, her eyes glistening with the memories of a life once filled with love and promise. "We dreamed of traveling together after he retired, making up for all the years we spent working hard and raising our family. But life doesn't always go as planned. He fell ill and passed away before we could make those dreams a reality. His death left a void in her life that seemed impossible to fill. Grief enveloped her like a heavy fog, and for a long time, she couldn't see a way forward. Her son, concerned for her well-being, offered to take her in, but Mrs. Fong didn't want to burden him. He had his own family and responsibilities, she explained. "I didn't want to disrupt their lives, so I decided to stand on my own 2 feet." To rediscover herself, she joined a dance and poetry recitation class, hoping to fill her days with activity and perhaps find a new sense of purpose. It was there that she met Mr. Liu, a classmate who seemed kind and caring. Their connection was gradual but meaningful. At first we were just acquaintances, Mrs. Fong recalled, but one day I sprained my ankle on the stairs, and he was the one who rushed me to the hospital. He even came to my house every day to help me recover. His thoughtful gestures touched her deeply, and before long, their relationship blossomed. When Mr. Liu proposed, Mrs. Fong was hesitant. "I wanted to discuss it with my son first," she said. "He didn't oppose the idea, but he advised me to take my time and observe Mr. Liu more closely. He even suggested meeting Mr. Liu's family to get a better sense of who he was." Initially, everything seemed promising. Both families met over dinner, and the evening went smoothly. Feeling reassured, Mrs. Fong decided to leap. "I thought I had found someone who could bring happiness back into my life," she said. "I was wrong." If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment below to let me know that you are still here with me. The early days of their marriage were pleasant enough, but cracks soon began to appear. "It started with little things," Mrs. Fong said, her voice heavy with regret. "I did all the housework, which I didn't mind at first. I was used to it. But then, when some old friends invited me on a trip, Mr. Liu objected. He said if I left, no one would be there to take care of the house. It felt so unfair, as if I was nothing more than a maid." Their arguments grew more frequent, and the situation worsened when Mr. Liu's grandson came to live with him. "At first I tried to treat him like my own," Mrs. Fong said, her eyes welling with tears, "but he was spoiled and unmanageable. When I suggested that Mr. Liu's son take responsibility for the boy, Mr. Liu lashed out at me. He said, 'You're not his mother, so don't interfere.' Those words cut me deeply. I realized then that I was never truly part of his family." The emotional toll became too much to bear. After months of feeling unappreciated and unheard, Mrs. Fong made the difficult decision to file for divorce. "It wasn't easy," she admitted, "but I knew I couldn't live like that any longer. Loneliness is hard, but it's nothing compared to the pain of feeling invisible in your own home." Reflecting on her experience, Mrs. Fong offered a heartfelt message to others considering remarriage later in life. "Don't let loneliness cloud your judgment," she said. "Take your time, listen to your instincts, and never settle for less than you deserve. Living alone might seem daunting, but sometimes it's the best way to protect your peace." Mrs. Fong's story is a powerful reminder that remarriage at an older age is not a decision to take lightly. While companionship can bring joy and comfort, it must be built on a foundation of mutual respect, understanding, and shared values. Rushing into a relationship out of fear of being alone can lead to consequences that are far worse than solitude. As Mrs. Fong so eloquently put it, "True happiness doesn't come from others, it comes from within." Life is full of lessons, and Mrs. Fong's story reminds us all of the importance of patience, self-reflection, and making thought decisions, especially during life's later years. What about you? After hearing her story, what have you learned? Have her experiences sparked any thoughts or reflections about your own choices or relationships? We'd love to hear from you. Comment below with one thing you've learned from this story and how you plan to bring it into practice in your life. If you found this video helpful, please let us know by leaving a comment, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for more inspiring stories and life lessons. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.